It's week 2 of fantasy, which means it's time for another video. Let's start by looking back on some big headlines from week 1. Celia crashed Scott's party by beating the lock of the week and crushing late to the party. The message to Rosie C is, don't cross me. Berkeley continues to be undefeated in week 1 as they just absolutely crushed the Fagans in the Saboni Berkeley 2-way 2-on-2 double trouble couple rumble. This puts Berkeley firmly as the team to beat. And we also have our first trade of the year this year as Brandon and Marianne pull off a pretty blockbuster trade. And to analyze its effect on the league, I'm going to kick things over to the Windy City for a new segment. Stay tuned.
Oh, hello. Didn't see you come in there. Well, welcome to Uncle Brandon's dimly lit fantasy trade corner. Here we want to talk a little bit about making some trades in the fantasy league. So first thing we want to do is recap one of the trades that happened this past week. We had one big blockbuster trade, and so let's take a look at the trade. And that brings us to the number one rule of fantasy trades. The goal of the trade is to make your roster better after the trade than it was before. Now, you may not think that you got the best value for the trade. Definitely think Marianne won this trade. But at the end of the day, I went from not having anyone to start in 2 roster slots to a guy who has a potential to be a top 10, top 5-ish wide receiver. And now we come to the last part of the show, where I take letters from you, the members of our league, to offer some advice. Thankfully, we can start off with a letter from someone in the league. Dear Uncle Brandon, longtime listener, first-time caller. I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he is the best ever. I want the best, only the best. So I was going to draft Rodgers with the first overall pick, but some jerk talked me out of it. Now I'm stuck with something called a Jared Goff. I want Rodgers. I need Rodgers. How do I get him? First and 10 Wisconsin, Will. Well, Will, it seems you probably wrote this letter before the first game of the season. And it looks like my wife's Chicago Bears may have put the beating on your boy Rodgers. But don't fret. Check the news, follow up with Schefter, maybe call the Packers front office. See if you think he's going to make a return. If you think so, you might be able to get a good return on him in the trade. Because now, I'll bet you that the person who has Rodgers, Sean, might be looking to upgrade at the quarterback position. He might be looking for someone like a Jared Goff. Package Goff in any Steelers you have, and see what Sean's looking to take. Well, that's it. See you all next week.
Thanks, Brandon. One thing that I think we need to keep in mind with this trade is it shows just how much cheering for the Buffalo Bills means loving the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's keep moving. Now we've got 1 week on the books. We can check in on the race for the Cup. In 7th place, we have Cleveland at 149 combined points. Right in front of them, we have Madison at 169. Farmington is just 10 points ahead for 5th place. Chicago makes a little jump to 192. In 3rd, we have Team Butler at 202. That means that 2nd place is East Lansing with 229. And Berkeley, with a dominating 249 combined points in week 1, is currently in 1st for the Cup. I'm disappointed too. Most importantly, let's check in on the best punter of the season so far in a segment that we will call Where's Bob? I named the trophy Bob because it stands for Big Old Booty. And this is how we'll track who's got the biggest boot of the year so far. So, who could have it? Who could it be? It could be anywhere, but it's with Marianne. Marianne has the punt performance to beat so far with a whopping 11 punt points in week 1. If nobody can beat 11 points in the remaining weeks of the season, Marianne's going to take home a crisp $5 bill. Nice job, Marianne. Matchups this week are incredible. We got something for everybody. Speaking of Marion, she had a rough time in week 1 playing against the Rabble Rousers. She's on her redemption tour now. She faces off against Carla in what's projected to be a close game. So we're hoping that Marion can get in the win column here, or that Carla can run her undefeated streak to 2-0. We've also got a trophy on the line this week as Shawnee takes on Scott in a game we're calling the Kalamazoo Clash. Excuse the train you can hear in the background. In a game we're calling the Kalamazoo Clash, in honor of these two having spent some time at Western Michigan, Scott getting his bachelor's degree there, and Sean as the golden-throated voice of Western Michigan athletics. They'll be facing off for the Boombox Ronnie Trophy here in honor of Kalamazoo's most beloved residents. Allison also has the chance this week to play as the top dog in the league following her stifling 127 in week 1. She's taking on Nick, who has a reputation of crushing dreams in this league. We also have a big matchup over in the Streaks division. Most of this division kind of pooped out in week 1. We had 5 of 7 teams record L's. But me and Kevin are both still alive, keeping undefeated streaks a possibility for the division. We're facing off this week, though, which means one of us has to lose, and unfortunately, it's currently projected to be the good guys. So keep your eyes on this one. Anytime that people play who stood for each other in their weddings, it's going to have a little bit of extra on the line here. Trisha takes on Marianne in week 2. This is also the same reason that Sean has weeks 12 and week 9 circled on his calendar. I don't remember why the photographer told us to smile as though we'd never seen a boy and a girl kissing here, but something tells me that Sean has these pictures burned into his mind as he prepares for later in the season. We also have a showdown between my 2 little brothers, Celia and Brandon. For comparison's sake, I've shown them here standing next to people dressed as birds. It's a game that I always love to call the Little Brother Bowl. And in our final matchup of the week, we have Michelle taking on Will in a matchup that's too close to call, which means I'm bringing in the big guns for Sweet Sweet Rosie C's Stone Cold Lock of the Week. This week we feature our first celebrity picker in Mr. Connor Joseph. And our segment this week is brought to you by Google. Thanks to Google, I was able to find out that not only is our fantasy league called the Hcfc, that's also the name of a furry convention called the Harbor City FurCon. HCFC also stands for the Hume City Football Club, a team for Turkish immigrants that is not very good at soccer. It also stands for hydrochlorofluorocarbons. Now, the interesting thing, if you ask yourself, well, where does the Harbor City FurCon meet? Well, right here in Sydney, Australia. And where does Hume City play? In Melbourne. And where are hydrochlorofluorocarbons creating a hole in the ozone layer? All over Australia. And the crazy thing is there's a special connection to Australia for this week's Lock of the Week matchup. Will played some of his best basketball for the Gold Coast Blaze in the Australian Basketball League. And when we were building the Outback Adventure to the Detroit Zoo, Michelle once offered to paint herself brown and live among the kangaroos, which means that there is a lot on the line here with these Australian ties. And while we're talking about that, thanks to the powerful internet searching capabilities offered by Google, I was able to discover that my doppelganger actually comes from Australia. You can see that American Garth Sabo and Australian Garth Sabo have very similar Facebook profile and cover posts, and the resemblance just gets more uncanny when you compare these photos of us drinking novelty-sized beverages or with daughters sleeping on our chests while we wear baseball hats. Although why this Australian man cheers for the Pittsburgh Pirates, I will never know. So, this brings us all back to our special sponsor message this week. Google, you're not special. All right, guys, I did not trust Rosie to be an impartial picker this week, so our celebrity picker for this block of the week is my nephew Connor. He's around the corner.
Here
We have
go.
our 2 pictures set up. Whichever one he picks will be the pick this week. Who's it gonna be, Connor? Oh,
What's it gonna be?
who's it gonna be?
Picking it, Michelle.
Oh, should we turn these around? Will that motivate you? What do you think? This guy or that weirdo?
Yay!
And Michelle's gonna be the winner. This has been another Surefire Lock of the Week.